How you doing? So something's popped up recently which I thought was very relevant to talk about, and it really did kind of capture my imagination for a video, or perhaps the fact that it didn't capture my imagination inspired me to make this video. So Blur, the classic legendary Britpop outfit, recently announced their 30th anniversary of their album The Great Escape, released in 1995, so coming up for the 30th anniversary. And to celebrate this, they've come out with a new vinyl package. However, as soon as this was announced on Instagram, it was met with a lot of backlash, like serious backlash. I was looking through the comments and there wasn't a single positive thing to say about it from anyone. Honestly, it wasn't even like it divided opinion. It was just, seriously, guys, there's still time to cancel this. And effectively the reason for this is that the artwork that they have chosen for this brand new re-release is like the tackiest sensory overload, tasteless AI nightmare you've ever seen in your entire life. Not only the fact that this album cover is a total eyesore, it also clearly utilizes AI, which is a greatly controversial subject within the realm of art and creativity and, the music business, etc., the art world. It looks as if they've gotten a 4-year-old with an iPad to do this cover. What is going on here? If you zoom in on this house over here, that's clearly AI. Look at the bush. Look at the way that the house is sort of morphing into, oblivion at the end of the road there. There's so many signs of just classic AI-generated imagery going on here. The feet are mangled together, for example. The statue on top of Nelson's column is just this weird sort of morphing of stuff. You got Sharon Stone with a burger for a head. Not sure what that's about. I suppose that's crossing over the different themes of the album. But yeah, it's not nice. It's really not nice. So they claim that Tony Hung created this artwork, who did the Magic Whip, which frankly was a really wonderful album cover. You had that iconic neon signage, which not only was an album cover, but that really was like a proper campaign for that album. It was just such a recognisable image, the neon ice cream. I remember when, the campaign stretched all the way to kind of them actually releasing a tub of ice cream at the time, back sort of 2015. I'm thinking it was really special that Blur, one of my favourite groups of all time, had a product which you could buy, down the co-op, I thought it was brilliant. But I digress. So either, Tony is either done an AI rushed job, he's quickly gone on ChatGPT, whipped something up and photoshopped it together, or, they've actually been scammed and, they thought they were emailing Tony and they were actually just emailing some random scammer who threw together this tacky AI crap in 2 seconds. It's just totally faultless, and they've naively gone, yeah, that's all right. Yeah, in terms of aesthetics, it reminds me of those really awful, tacky, like American sweet shops that you get on Oxford Street and around Leicester Square, those really horrible shops that you get these days, selling, sort of London-related paraphernalia, plastic crap, sort of tourist trap. It reminds me of that, but also a lot of the food vendors around that part of the world are starting to employ similar tactics. Me and my friend Asa, we were walking past like an ice cream vendor in Leicester Square, and they had all these AI-generated images of different types of ice creams on the wall, and we were just saying, like, what? Why? Like, you sell ice cream? You could take a picture of it? Like, what is going on? It's almost like non-artwork. Like, technically something is there, but I certainly wouldn't call it art. The real ironic thing is that Blur have such an incredibly rich history of great, iconic artwork for all of their albums and all of their branding. They've just done so many different designs over the years, which you look at them and you think, yeah, that's Blur. That's classic British band Blur on Food Records. This is, a great marketing image. And then we come to this and it's just so off-brand with what they've done in the past, And I was thinking this the other day before this new Great Escape anniversary was announced. I was thinking to myself, the Blur albums that I have on vinyl are actually some of the nicest looking LPs in my entire collection. They really do pop. Here I've got the album itself, the album in question, The Great Escape. This is one of the nicest looking and feeling LP sleeves I own. It really is wonderful. It's got a certain thickness to it. You have that lovely image of the guys on the back, looking great as ever. Of course, on the CD edition, when you pulled the artwork out, it revealed that the diver has gone in the sea with this big nasty fish, shark I should say. You know, this is nice. This is something that, you know, you want to pay for. You know, they got it spot on with this. You know, the logo, the font, everything. It just works perfectly with this album. You know, it really is. It's an insult to the people who are going to pay hard-earned cash for this. This AI stuff just feels so cheap and, you know, trying to cut corners without using any creativity. But yeah, The Great Escape. I remember Sonia from EastEnders, the character Sonia. She received this album for Christmas on cassette, 1995. I'll post a little clip of that here.
Excellent. Is it the right one?
Yeah, of course it is. Can I put it on?
Yeah, of course you can.
Who is it?
It's Blur.
Wait, turn it down.
You know, that track plays out in the EastEnders scene for, you know, about 2 minutes. So, you know, Blur must have received a pretty hefty PRS royalty for that. So for a bit of a laugh, I thought I would generate my own AI images of what this 30th anniversary edition could have looked like. You know, even if you are going to use AI, it doesn't have to look this bad. Not that you should use AI because of the moral implications of it. You know, there's thousands, you know, hundreds of thousands of really talented artists out there that you could have paid to do it, who would have done a far more creative and interesting job of it than this. But for a laugh, let's just see what we can get with a few simple text prompts. So I've got this one. This one's kind of nice, sort of you know, a 19th century oil painting, perhaps. Kind of reminds me of the artwork of Modern Life is Rubbish. And then we got this one, similar design. That would have looked quite appealing on an LP sleeve. Not too bad, not too bad. We got this one, very much going with the theme of the original album cover, but with the running man doing The Great Escape, and then of course the big shark and the speedboat. I quite like the colours on this actually. It's quite a nice blend, whilst also being faithful to the original album cover. This could have worked. And then probably my favourite, we have this nice collage for The Great Escape. Very, very Britpop magazine collage. So yeah, I do disagree with using AI in most contexts. You know, it's an insult to the consumers, it's an insult to the creative people, and it's an insult to art. You know, it's an insult to the art world. And the great irony of it is that Damon Albarn is very anti-AI. He's one of the musicians who's actually come out and said, you know, AI is very bad for the music business because, you know, these billionaire corporations are trying to train all their AI models on people's work, you know, people's copyrighted material, and the law needs to catch up so that people can't do this because anybody can plagiarize at the click of a button, you know, and it's far too easy to just be able to rip stuff off nowadays and claim it as your own. So, you know, something's got to be done about it because otherwise we're not going to have a music business in the future, you know? So it's quite ironic how Damon, you know, has passed this off, but he is actually very anti-AI. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's a deliberate scheme. I mean, we all know that he's actually not a big fan of this album.
It could be you. I can't remember how that goes.
It's not good. For many years, that was the one you didn't talk about, you know. So, well, no, I haven't got that one in my collection.
So maybe it's like an ironic thing, like he's given it this terrible artwork because he hates the album so much. Who knows? So yeah, I do disagree with the use of AI in something like this, especially something that's really raking in the cash or trying to rake in the cash. You know, I'm not necessarily against AI. I've used AI myself to assist in certain things, such as one of the images in my intro that you see was partly used with AI. It's a bowling alley from my childhood, which I'm a little bit fixated on. I got an image of that bowling alley from a really old YouTube video. I put it into the software. The AI made a cartoon version of it. But obviously there were all kinds of imperfections, all kinds of things that didn't add up. So I actually had to go in there and edit it myself, spending hours drawing and fixing things. For example, all the brickwork that you see on the side, that was all literally hand drawn by me on an iPad. And then I had the image exposed onto 35mm film to give it a very retro filmic sort of oversaturated, more imperfect look. So yeah, like uses of AI like that I think is okay because I've done the work. And also, I haven't earned any money off for that. But yeah, I think it's a cheeky thing to do when they're asking £35 for this. I think consumers should get something a bit better. A lot of these anniversary vinyl packages do really reek of sort of cash grab and rip off, you know, without delivering something substantial and special. Also, another thing, coming away from the artwork for 5 minutes, the whole album has been put onto one side, so put onto one disc. And this is a long-ass album, right? This album clocks in at nearly 60 minutes. Probably a little bit too long, actually, in my opinion. But in order to accommodate these new B-sides which they're putting on there, which aren't very exciting anyway, you know, literally just putting on some lesser tracks that you don't need on vinyl, they've had to squeeze the whole album onto one disc. And I think, actually, that's not going to work, because you're going to have nearly half an hour of music per side. There's going to have to be so much compression with them grooves. They're going to have to be, you know, so close together. You're going to lose so much clarity. It goes to show this is not something which is about sound or about, you know, caring about the consumer. This is just a cash grab. You know, my vinyl copy of this proudly comes on 2 big discs, and it needs it. You know, it really does. It needs it. Also, whilst I'm here having a bit of a moan, they've marketed this on their website before you buy it, saying Blur's seminal album, The Great Escape. This is not a seminal album. Park Life is a seminal album. This album is often regarded as actually one of the weaker Blur albums. I mean, I like it personally. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. You know, tracks like Earn Old Same, Charmless Man. But this album, among the general scheme of Blur albums, is not very rated. It sits right in the middle of 4 albums, 2 albums either side of it, which are far more regarded. You know, Modern Life is Rubbish, Part Life, and then Self-Titled and 13. All those albums are way more rated than this. I would argue that some people rate the Magic Whip more than this album. I wouldn't describe it as seminal. Not at all. And Damon Albarn hates this album. I think the problem with the album is that it's slightly too focused on sort of Chaz and Dave, knees up, sort of character songs, kind of in the style of the Kinks, but the album doesn't have too much variation, especially considering its length. So every single song is like a character song about a London character, like, oh, Mr. Potatoes, he lives at number 4. He works down the off-licence and keeps knickers in his drawer. That's a terrible impression of one of these songs. But so yeah, I don't know how much involvement the band themselves have had with this release. I would presume very, very minimal. You know, I don't know if Graham Coxon and Damon Albarn have just emailed this design and have just had a very quick glance at it in their ivory tower and just gone like, whatever, that's fine. You know, they've seen like a tiny image of it on an email, I'd just be like, yeah, that's fine, yeah. 30th anniversary, yeah, whatever, yeah. So yeah, I had a feeling that before I shot this video, this whole thing was going to be cancelled and it was going to be given different artwork, you know, because literally every comment about this on Instagram is just like, you know, firing away at how awful it is. And everybody who's involved in the design is going to have a big slice of humble pie and just say, like, that was awful, sorry, you know. But that hasn't seemed to have happened. So, yeah, you can buy the 30th anniversary of The Great Escape. It's £35 if you want to buy it. And if you want to have this monstrosity, go for it. Why not? So, that's it from me for today. I shall see you very soon with a more typical video, I suppose. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my total rambling about a Blur record. Thank you very much. Goodbye.